I rarely get to see my kids. That's a risk you have to take. You might recognise that quote from a recent Twitter ad that was met with such instant and widespread outrage that it was pulled within hours. But is it that extreme a view when we look at how hundreds of thousands of working parents in this country are living their lives? Is it really that different from, I don't get to see my kids as much as I should because I'm too busy with work? Every day, people are choosing to spend time at work when they could be choosing to spend that time with their children. And the majority of business leaders are setting that example and could be doing a whole lot more to help the working parents of this country make a better choice. Everybody in the UK who's been with their employer for over a year and who has children under the age of 18 is entitled to 4 weeks additional leave per year, per child, to spend with their children, up to a total of 18 weeks per child. So why do so many people choose to spend time working when they could be spending that time with their children in those incredible and irreplaceable early years? After all, we have a lifetime of work, but our children are only young once. Now, I'm no expert, I'm not a researcher, and I don't come armed with statistics to support my case. But I come with the experiences and observations of a husband, a father, and a working man who has, over the past 5 years, passionately evangelised the merits of unpaid parental leave to hundreds of working parents. And I see 4 key reasons why parents are spending time at work they could be spending with their children. Reason number 1 is many of them don't even know that unpaid parental leave exists. And when I explain it to them, I'm first met with kind of frowns of confusion and then surprise, and then it's great though when I see the penny drop and their eyes light up and I start to see the realisation of life's possibilities opening up in their minds. And of course, many of them wish they'd known about it earlier. The second reason I hear is, I can't afford it. Now, of course, for many people, money is a real issue. But I know that for other people, it's that word unpaid that simply becomes a blocker. When they say, I can't afford it, what they really mean is, I don't want to earn less money. But isn't that basically the same as saying, I would rather reduce the amount of time I spend with my children than reduce the amount of money I earn? And if those few weeks' earnings are so important, then maybe retire at 65 and a half instead of 65. And in the meantime, try budgeting on a 50-week salary rather than a 52-week salary. Do you think a child feels more loved when mummy or daddy bring home a decent salary, or when mummy or daddy are playing with them, cuddling them, talking to them, and teaching them new things? Will your children benefit more from time with you in their formative years, or from an extra few weeks' worth of inheritance when you're gone? Now, admittedly, that inheritance may arrive for them a few years earlier if you weren't spending too much time at work, given you'd probably be more prone to heart disease, stress, and accelerated ageing. I had a stark reminder of that the year I turned 40. I started having palpitations and pains in my chest and my arm. I'd be out riding my bike and finding that my legs just wouldn't go. I remember walking to the doctor one cold December morning and struggling to the point I literally had to stop and crouch down to try and catch a breath. Now, the doctor referred me for further tests, and they followed blood tests, an ECG monitor, MRI scan, and it actually turned out that all in all, I was in really good health. I didn't have a heart murmur like the doctor first thought. I just happened to have an unusual ECG pattern, which apparently 10% of the population do. The problem had been stress. Getting up too often at 4 in the morning to head down south for 9 AM meetings, working too long and too hard. And by the time the exploratory procedures had finished in early January, I was feeling as fit as a fiddle. So how would my vital signs all magically sort themselves out? Because I'd had a 2-week break over Christmas, spending time with my wife and my children and wider family. And remember my boss saying, nobody on their deathbed ever regrets not spending enough time at work, but many regret not spending enough time with the people they love. So a few months later, I was enjoying a 5-week summer break with my family, thanks to my first stint of unpaid parental leave. The third reason I hear is, I can't afford the time off work. Well, maybe, but for most people, I just don't buy it. If you can afford to take time off work for standard holiday leave, and you can afford to take time off work at the weekends, then you can afford to take time off for parental leave. And ask yourself, can you afford not to spend that time with your children when evidence shows that the more time children have with their parents, the more likely they are to succeed at school, to have high self-esteem, and to respect others who are different from themselves, and the less likely they are to be violent and to get into trouble and to struggle in life generally. Now, I'd like to say at this point, I love my job. I love the people it brings me into contact with. And as Natasha alluded to, I love the fact I spend a vast majority of my time, nearly all my time in fact, in the northwest of England, where I live and where I grew up. The danger, of course, when you love your job, is you can bring it home with you, and you can work longer hours because you don't see it as a chore. And when friends say to you, or they commiserate with you for having to work later at weekends, you say, it's fine. I love my job. I don't mind doing extra work in my own time. Fair enough. But let me rephrase that. It's fine. I love my job so much that I choose to spend time working that I should be spending with my family. Imagine it the other way around. You don't rock up to work and find people saying, it's fine. I love my family. That's why I brought them into the office for a little game of indoor cricket, so if you don't mind moving those chairs out the way. And no, boss, I can't make that board meeting right now because I'm playing pie face. Dave, can you keep the bosses downstairs? I'm trying to play pie face here. You just don't get that. Now, whenever I take parental leave, a friend or family member will occasionally say, how can the business run without you? Well, firstly, they clearly don't know that I'm really not that important. But secondly, I'd like to think that any business leader smart enough to run a business is smart enough to ensure that business can keep running well in their absence for a few weeks. And if leaders don't set that example, then what will the rest of the organisation think? Which brings me to the fourth and final reason that people give, and the one I find the most galling. I'm worried what it would do to my career. I'm worried what people would think. Is that what society has become? That we are first and foremost work machines, and we have to fight and justify to be great parents to our kids? Well, that's not a society I want to be part of, and it's not a society I want my children growing up in. We need a cultural revolution. Employers, how about paying for the first week of unpaid leave to encourage working parents to give it a try? How could any parent refuse a free trial of extra time with their children? Unless, of course, they don't know about it or they're worried it will be career limiting. So business leaders, be role models. Take parental leave and encourage others to do the same. I ask all parents in my business to set themselves an objective around parental leave and spending more time with their children. Imagine if we could get every child benefiting from an extra 18 weeks with their parents, or a couple of siblings benefiting from an extra 36 weeks, or a family of 4 children benefiting from an extra 72 weeks with their parents. Now, there's probably business leaders up and down the country squirming at that idea. It'd be chaos. How am I going to control my business? Well, let's say 100 people in your organisation take an extra 2 weeks off unpaid. Well, first of all, that'll give you a decent chunk of salary that you're not paying, that you can choose to do something else with. You can choose to employ extra people to fill in those gaps if you so wish. Encourage it to become the norm, and it'll be easier to manage. And by the way, when those parents are in work, they'll be more engaged, more productive, and you'll probably get that 2 weeks back in output anyway. And just think about what you'd be doing for the future of humanity. Let's change our thinking, let's change our culture, so that spending time with our children, in preference to spending time at work, is accepted as the right and normal thing to do. We have a lifetime of work, but our children are only young once. Thank you.